Okay, guys, so tonight we have my relaxed COVID-19 lockdown podcast. And what do I mean by relaxed? It means we take things a little bit less seriously. I talk to my personal friends as well, even though most of the people I have already spoken to are personal friends anyway. But things get a bit wavy. I do the things that I don't normally show and tell in my real life. So I will be drinking and I will be smoking, which is my other vice, which I do smoke the occasional cigar. And with me tonight, more importantly, I've got a very, very close friend of mine and a very inspirational guy. This is Jack King. He's a graphic designer and also a podcast host. Very creative and hilariously funny chap, and I'm very proud to have you on board with me, Jack. So how you doing, my friend? How you doing?
Hey Joe, yeah, thanks for the very kind intro. That's
All
most
lies,
complimentary.
utter lies, utter bollocks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd say me and Jack, we've actually travelled around parts of Europe together that neither of us can remember. We've done we played rugby, we've bled together on the pitch, we've bled together on the beach and in nightclubs. So we've had a fantastic time together. But more importantly, I would consider you as close as a brother. So it is fantastic to get you on board today, mate. So first of all, I'm gonna roll out with all the necessary shit that I speak to everyone else about right now. What's
Sure.
it like doing what you do and going through the times that we're going through right now?
Well, thanks, brother. It's been a weird time at the minute, isn't it? It's do you know what? For me, I guess weirdly enough, the situation is odd, but I'm actually kind of used to this arrangement of working remotely anyway. I basically work part time in an office environment, 3 days a week, and I've been doing that for about a year. That aside, I also, as you mentioned, work in graphic design. So I've been doing some designer stuff, which is all done either from home or in a sort of cafe nearby to where I live in North London. And then I'm also doing started a podcast recently as well. And so yeah, like the home working arrangement I've been doing anyway. Before being part time recently, I've been working full time, without any breaks for 10 years. So this is all a very new thing, but I've had 8 months to get used to it, and then obviously this is all kicked off. But it sort of feels very much like in terms of my sort of day-to-day routine, just a continuation of that arrangement I was already getting used to. So it's been fine. And for anyone else who doesn't know me, Joe, you know this very well, but I'm also sort of a massive binge drinker as well. So, my office job being in the city, for the last 10 plus years, my routine has been 2 or 3 times a week after work, drinking 10 to 12 pints of beer, not eating dinner on that occasion, having a late night, etc. It's not great for the diet, but I work very hard on those other days to kind of counterbalance it. But without now doing the 10 to 12 pints, the weight's just dropping off me. I'm actually, if I'm not careful, I'm going to be in the best shape of my adult life in the next 2-3 weeks.
Rugby comeback is imminent.
Exactly. But yeah, otherwise, I'm trying to keep perspective on things as well. I think there's a lot of obviously social media stuff, a lot of people struggling out there, but I'm fine. I'm fine. It's trying to keep a pragmatic head on things. Yeah. There's a lot of people who are worse off than me at the minute, who are struggling, understandably. It's just trying to keep structure, routine, and just crack on, really. Yeah, all good.
What would you say? I mean, at the moment, plans are on hold. I know you and your other half, you live a fun life. You do cool stuff. You don't have kids to worry about at the moment and stuff like that, and quite carefree. What's that like now? Suddenly, you're stuck in. What happens there? What's the mindset?
Well, she is loving it. Absolutely loving it.
Actually loving it, or
no, No, in fairness, we're actually both enjoying it. To be fair,
Yeah.
um, it's we've always got on really well because we're very similar. So
Well,
actually,
she's extremely creative, isn't she?
she's very creative. So we have sort of similar interests, and we're both extremely placid people. So when we're in the house, there's neither of us are particularly, tense people. We haven't got any kind of stresses, particularly now where obviously it's just kind of focusing on it day to day without much else going on in your life. It's just completely stress free. We're fine, really. Honestly, mate, it's absolutely fine. I think she's very much enjoying the fact that I'm home more than a couple of nights a week, which is great for
Yeah,
her.
yeah.
Sounds so arrogant, but I just mean, I have a bendy arm, so it only takes someone at work to say, "Do you fancy a quick pint?" And that pint turns into several. So
Turns
yeah,
into a month.
exactly that. So it's nice to actually be home for a bit, and we spend some quality time. And we just moved into a new flat rented in Zone 2 North London a couple of months ago. So there's a few things, we're just like a few bits of DIY that I'm doing to the flat and that sort of stuff. So yeah, in terms of our relationship, we're hunky dory, mate. And like you say, no kids. So I'm sure there's plenty of parents out there who now you've got your kids at home all the time. Well, back at you, Jerry. How you finding it, mate? Two kids at home?
Absolutely. Well, for a start, I am seeing it for what it is, and the opportunity there to. I've got to know my kids more now than I have in forever, really. And I know my kids well. I spend a lot of time with my children. I see them every morning and more or less every night. I'm blessed. I get to take them to school. I get to pick them up from school. I'd say just because they're not at school. So during the day, I'm seeing them absolutely loads, which is amazing. And I knew their personalities, but now I can see about how their minds work, even see little things that they love doing, and more so than what I realised they love doing. So I'm very much enjoying that. I think the first thing I want to do when this is all over is probably just have me and my wife time. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah. Oh no. Yeah. I mean, that's not exactly the problem, but I think just me and her, no distraction, nothing, and just be with each other for a bit. Because even though we have that of an evening, even though tonight I'm with you, the kids are out, one's in our bed, our kids are terrible sleepers, and we allow it to happen because we're pretty relaxed parents when it comes to that kind of stuff. So yeah, that side of things I'd like a little bit more time for, but at the same time, we are having a great time, and I've learned absolutely loads about our family dynamic that I would never have known if this hadn't have happened.
Yeah.
I mean, financially, it's horrendous, but oh yeah, don't. Well, long story short, we were saving up quite well to do a big conversion at the gym, and then some stuff in our personal property, on our personal property, and the savings are just going on keeping the rent going at the gym, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then other things I've got which are considered assets are slowly becoming liabilities, where I've got property that I rent out, and obviously people can't afford to pay rent. So yeah, roughly about £2,000 a week outgoings with no income. So a little bit of a kick in the nuts, but hey, like I say, just this year the gym won't be getting air conditioning. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. No, I understand, mate. That's tough. Back on the kids thing, I've loved seeing the videos or the clips of you guys doing the homeschooling stuff. That's great. But yeah, like you say, it's a full-time tiring job. Like while we don't have kids, I've got two little nieces, and just spending days with them. One's sort of just nearing 3. One's at a year and a half. So they're actually obviously younger than your two daughters, but
yeah.
they're just an absolute handful, and they're just they require constant attention. And I'm very much grateful that I go and see them, or when I used to be able to see them, could just sort of be there for the day, and then I would need a couple of weeks to recover afterwards, just from the exactly. So, like you say, although you've got time with Gemma in the evenings, I imagine you're absolutely drained from doing a day's worth of all of what you're doing.
Well, I mean, at the moment as well, like I said to you earlier, I'm still working, so I'm up at probably about 6 at the moment, getting 2 hours done with emailing and doing stuff, and then I'll take Madeline out for a quick bike ride. Gem comes in, does her workout, then I'll do a couple of live training sessions or Q&As with stuff with the team, and then I'll manage the team quickly. Then 2 hours with the kids, then and then I'm also trading at the moment, doing podcasts. Which, I mean, the trading's great. I can dip in and out of the day trading as and when, which is something I've done for a while, which is good. And yeah, long story short, my day probably starts at 6 in the morning and finishes at 9:30 at night, and rinse and repeat. But that's 7 days a week. It's no longer Monday to Friday, so it is hard. But at the same time, if I didn't have that, I would be a psychopath. I'd be nuts. I'd be absolutely nuts. You've been away with me, and if I'm not doing anything, it's Jerry board time. I want to do something. I can't be having that.
It makes a magical moment in the context of a boys on tour, but in normal day-to-day life, not the best. Yeah, man. I really sympathise with the job situation. I was told last week. So obviously, the part of my working week that's office related, I was told last week I'm being furloughed.
Yeah.
Which came into effect as of Friday. Which isn't ideal, but even then, I at least again, keeping the whole perspective thing I mentioned earlier, I'm at least grateful that I'm still in some respects receiving a percentage of an income, which will help to contribute towards the outgoings for the time being. And also, while I am furloughed, basically I will be spending the majority of my working week now focused on what next, what else can I line up? I haven't had a chance to look at what's out there in the market yet, but if there are any roles, there will be companies recruiting and wanting people to work remotely. So again, as fortunately I work in an office, or part of my career as an office job worker, then I should feasibly be able to find something to work remotely on.
I mean, that's saying that as well. I mean, now's the time to think dynamically about that, because we are going to have a backlash from what's going to happen here. So there'll be less opportunity in probably leisure. There'll be less opportunity in probably travel, because they've had the first thing companies seem to do is cut back on staff and cut back on advertising to maintain profits, which are the two things you should be putting more money into to increase profits in times of uncertainty. However, there are so many opportunities in things that are thriving right now. So government operations, when it comes to any government operation right now. So working with local councils, when it comes to working with schools, when it comes to working with anything that is going to need a boost, there's opportunity. Airlines, when they come back on board, they're going to need opportunity. Small travel companies, when it comes to banks, I would have thought lending streams, or even information, anything that's to do with information right now. So there's probably stuff out there that is actually being created that isn't even on the market yet, because it's serving a demand that has only just been invented.
100%.
So at the moment, it's crazy what could be out there in 6 weeks' time. There's so much opportunity.
Yeah, a silver lining. This is specific to the company I've been working for, but a silver lining, and this will probably be the same for a lot of businesses out there, is it's forcing businesses to adapt the way they work and kind of bring them into the modern age in many respects. Obviously, for those that are still able to run, because using technology in a greater way and actually accessing that, thinking outside the box about how you can monetize that as well.
Yeah.
I think it's pushing a lot of companies into that kind of new space where actually, naturally they probably would have done it over a period of 10 to 15 years. It's now kind of forcing the subject. So it's kind of a good silver lining that it's kind of pushing. It should push a lot of industries along into a slightly modern way of working, or more modern. Who knows whether, maybe they'll even look at the working week and whether, how whether that needs to change. If a lot of businesses realize that flexibly working from home can be easily achieved in certain roles, whether they need to be done Monday to Friday or 9 to 5, if they could be done in a slightly different way, whatever. Yeah, it's interesting. For me, I've got basically recruitment is the office job, as you know, Jerry. Is the office job that I do, but then I've been studying a project management certification, and I've been doing a lot of projects in my roles to date. So I'm also using this time. I want to kind of learn as well and do more study. So I'm finishing my project management certification, and so I'm going to use this time to kind of look at 3 different routes of income employment. One is the recruitment that I've got a lot of experience in. The other is projects that I've got a bit of experience in starting to move into. And then the third is the graphic design bit that we've already sort of mentioned.
So there's a whole new way of working now, and you're going to, the name always escapes me. You're going to know it straight off. And it's where you can just duck in and out of different job roles. So you're kind of constantly tempting. What's that?
Freelancing?
Yeah, no, there's a new word for it. I'm gonna kick myself. I'm gonna have to Google it in a minute.
I've got no idea.
It's pretty much where one day you think, I'm going to work for them, then I'm going to work for them, and you honestly bounce off and do what you want to do. Someone spoke to me about it the other day.
Got it. Employee whoring.
Employee, just being a slag. I'm going to have to Google it. I don't normally get my phone out on podcast, but or depending on what platform you're using, it could be a podcast or YouTube. But like I say, this is a more relaxed one. I need to know. It's I nearly had it then. And it's a new way of working. It sounds very interesting. And I didn't know whether you knew anything about it. But anyway,
so
I'll look that up in a minute.
Is it, you say it's basically where people would spend one day working for one company, one as another, like as in their week would be, so would it be, because obviously freelancers would do that anyway, like they, might work
gig
one day for one.
There you go, the gig. It's called, I was pretty sure it's called is it the gig?
What, gig economy?
Gig economy, yeah, well, yeah. People that work for who they want, and they duck in and out of it as and when they please.
Yeah, so, yeah. That is it. For all intents and purposes, that is freelancing, isn't it? But I think, the gig economy is what they're calling it now in terms of as an industry. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's people who have a specific skill set who can, essentially monetize their services for their skills, and would, like you say, one day be working for one employer, next day next.
But they're quite literally saying that they are going. The gig economy is evolving to a point where one day someone will be, have your skills as a graphic designer, and will be caning it as a graphic designer, do a massive project, and just think, you know what, I need something to calm down, and go and pick fruit on a fruit picking farm. So that amount of diversity.
Okay, yeah.
You see what I mean? Where you just think, well, I've had enough. I need to relax a bit. I still need to earn money, but I'd like a change of scenery. I'm going to go and work in a fishing town for a bit. I'm going to go down to Cornwall. I'm going to do a season there. And they bounce from job to job, big job, small job, big job, small job. And that's the way they're kind of evolving into that, which I think is exciting. But I think with this kind of new way of communicating. So if you look at social media, where it's just constant change, excitement, exchange of dopamine, it gives people that like a relaxed lifestyle where they can keep having that in their own career as well, which is like madness. But at the same time, you think could be more productive because it's always everyone that turns up. They're new, yeah, but they're always excited, which is crazy, right?
Yeah. You're excited, you're motivated, you're galvanized, and you've got a specific goal. You know, I've done I've done plenty of like webinars and online training through employers where they talk about, you know, what motivates people, what motivates employees, and you know, once you earn enough, you know, to live and to hit certain, you know, life measures of what you need, etc., outgoings, then you know that doesn't, for most people anyway, that's not the most important thing. The most important things are things like, you know, having a greater sense of purpose, feeling like you add value, and so if you're able to, if you're kind of in that mindset where you're doing that on a more flexible basis, you know, you're coming in at something. Your first focus is, I'm actually interested in doing that, so that's why I'm doing it. Not I need, you know, I need to keep money coming in. So it makes sense that you'd get a lot more out of it. And then, you know, if you're in a position where you can do 3 months of a graphic designer or whatever, and then go 3 months of fruit picking at a much reduced salary, then fucking hey, why not? I actually really like the idea. It sounds like they've put like a name on. There's probably loads of freelancers out there who've been doing that sort of thing for a while, because you know, when you are you know, certain people where you've got a certain skill set, they can earn really good day rates, and that, you know, you do meet people who have been doing this for a long time, where they might do 6 months of a contract on a day rate, and then they'll go and spend 3 months traveling. So it's kind of that kind of same principle, isn't it, of just like mixing it up, not, you know, going for something that's a set permanent 9 to 5 Monday to Friday indefinitely. It's kind of just a change in mindset of how to live.
I'd like to think that those days are coming to an end. I mean, I'm an employer, but on a very small scale. You know, I've got a few employees, and I love what I do, and I'm so proud of my team. But there is a demand for them to be on site. They have to be on site. I can't have a remote fitness instructor. It doesn't work.
Yeah, of course.
Even though we're doing it at the moment, in-house, that doesn't work. However, if I was, you know, providing I wasn't dealing with super sensitive information, I don't even think that matters either. Because I know, for instance, I know solicitors that have taken laptops home to work from home at the moment. I know people that have to deal with sensitive information. In fact, I interviewed Chris Roll from the rugby club the other day, and he's dealing with sensitive information from his own home, and they have to have certain amounts of security around what they're doing. But it's getting to a point now. Well, if I owned a huge company where I was paying out X amount of rates, X amount for having a high rise in central London, and at the moment I'm achieving 80% of what I normally achieve in central London. However, my outgoings are 40%. I'm making profit.
100%. It's funny you say that, because so the company I work for, the office job and the recruitment job, is a law firm, and they've got, you know, a large office in London, and their obviously costs for rent of that real estate are astronomical. I mean, I don't know whether I'm assuming they're probably trying to get some kind of deferral of rent payments while those office. You know, I don't know what companies are currently doing.
I can shed some light on that in a minute. Yeah, I can tell you exactly what they do. Yeah.
But basically, one thing on the company, you know, it's a global company, and one thing on the board's agenda over the last couple of years has been to pilot in certain parts of the business flexible working and working remotely. And you know, part of it is because, you know, a lot of other companies are doing it, so it's just kind of trying to think more outside of the box about how people work. But, you know, from a business perspective, it's also a cost saving exercise, because rather than having people in a place like London, London is our biggest office globally, and the cost of rent is astronomical. So, you know, trying to find more ways of people either hot desking if they have to go into the office, or working remotely, you know, 2 or 3 days a week and not having a fixed location for your desk is going to be a massive cost saving in the long term. But again, like we mentioned earlier, that kind of the firm had started doing that sort of thing, but it was taking it's creeping along and gradually being done. But now it's kind of forced the issue.
Yeah.
So overnight, 3 weeks ago, the IT department, I really felt for them, because overnight, suddenly you had 4,000 plus employees all remotely logging on from home and needed to at the same time on servers that had never been tested for that sort of thing before, with licenses that didn't exist because we didn't have enough licenses for everyone to do it at the same time. It was just absolute pandemonium. But, that was a week and a half of stress to get that up and running. But then now, it's generally running okay. Everyone's able to log on. The business is still functioning. So like you say, back to your point, businesses hopefully are going to start saying, well, why do we need to pay God knows how much money for the rentals, or for as much office space in the long term?
But then you think about the backlash from that. So the London commercial bubble burst, the residential immediately straight after. So if you could work from home, so you have to go into London. Imagine if you have to travel into Central once a week. You're going to start bulking out top whack rent to be in where you are right now? Or would you think, well, hang about, I could probably make a 2-hour commute and I could have a huge house for half the rent I'm paying, with beautiful bit of land around me, and I've only got to go into London like once a week.
100%. I'm renting at the minute, so and I guess it's there are some other circumstances. Obviously, for me, living in London for the last few years has been in part about the work and commute, but also about just being able to enjoy the rest of what London has to offer. So that's been great in many respects, and it's kind of that trade-off, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, if that's something I was able to facilitate, then yeah, as soon as I look to buy, or even next place to rent, I'd be right out into somewhere with a bigger land, bigger house. Well, this is a 1-bed flat at the minute. It's big enough for us, but it's not it's not a huge space. So yeah, if you could go out in the sticks and get more space, only have to commute in once a week, if that, yeah, 100%. That's exactly what I'd be doing. And like you said, I'm sure a lot more people would do it as well.
But then the knock-on effect then to property prices in Central or on the commuter belt would be, the knock-on would just be crazy. The bubble, the London bubble would just explode, which is already, there's already had a knock-on. The COVID-19's already had a knock-on from that anyway, but the bubble had burst really earlier on in 2019 anyway. I think something like a 5% drop in Central. Let's move on to what's been getting you what's kind of been doing it for you?
Mate, I'm actually really enjoying fitness at the minute. Like, I think in some ways, like my love-hate relationship with fitness over the years, is like anyone else's. But I'm also someone who, if I'm really into something, I go all in.
Yeah.
And I've never been like that with fitness, because, like I mentioned before, I'm quite a social drinker, and working in the city, always out a lot. And so it kind of that kind of mentality hasn't always married well with being able to keep up the perfect routine. I've kind of managed to nail that down much better in the last year and a half, because I started going to the gym before work.
Yeah.
I could never do it after work because, like I say, too many distractions, not wanting to kind of eat into the evening. or if you work late, you kind of miss it. And then I found like the perfect routine, perfect spot, being just before work. Finally started getting up earlier, probably because I'm getting fucking older as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's that's been working well. But then obviously now that there's no drinking whatsoever, apart from occasional few beers at home,
Yeah.
and obviously with the restrictions and only being able to get outside with exercise, I'm loving getting out for a run, doing some high intensity like circuits in the living room. I just bought a jump rope, did the first jump rope session a couple of days ago, which...
So is this a regular one, or is it one of those big, heavy ones?
It's a regular one. Yeah. Calves are still in bits, and that was about 3 days ago. So, yeah. But like, I'm just enjoying like mixing up and like getting some proper discipline to it. And I think that's in no small part because I'm now like more focused on that because the other stuff has been taken away. But I'm actually really enjoying it. So yeah, I kind of like it, and I'm seeing the weight drop off me as well.
Yeah,
which is good. You wouldn't tell from the beard, obviously, because it's.
I mean, for people watching, you can see that Jack's got quite a sharp and new haircut, which is what grade is that? What grade is that for people that are listening?
This is probably, I don't know, maybe a 1, 2.
1 or 2. So you had quite locks though, didn't you? You had quite a fair bit of hair.
I have dabbled in the hair game, yes.
And you did a full Britney, didn't you? On with the first week of lockdown, wasn't it? And straight on Facebook. Just in fact, if you do have it on YouTube, I'll put it in the show notes. Just decided to buzz your hair off whilst giving some quite sound advice if everyone should keep their head during these turbulent times.
If I remember
about that inspiration,
I think if I remember that, yeah, the advice was not to do anything that would upset your routine or too dramatic, as I'm shaving the line through the center of the head. Do you know what? I've always been quite flippant with my hairstyles. I have a good head of hair, so I can be quite, adventurous with trying different things.
I've seen some extreme haircuts in the past, mate. Yeah.
You have, yes. But one I've always avoided is being bald, because when you've got a good head of hair, why the fuck would you be bald? So literally, as soon as I realised, this is going to be potentially a good few months of being indoors without seeing, the wider world, apart from, millions of people online. But I thought, well, now's the best time to actually try that, because for me, it was like, you never seen what the shape of your head's like. So you think, I could have all sorts of weird and wonderful lumps coming out, and, it could be a cone head, who knows. But so I literally went zero buzz cut, so pretty much bald. And yeah, I'm kind of enjoying the liberation of it. It's quite nice.
I'd say you've got a nice shaped head as well. I've played rugby, and you know probably some guys from the club that have had some extremely unfortunate shaped heads. And naturally, their choice of haircut is a buzz cut down to a grade 1. Almost proud of their strange shaped heads. I don't know whether it's like, it's always a forward as well. It's always a big, airy, great forward. The worst shaped heads have always been flankers and tight head props. And for those of you who are listening and watching and don't know what that is, a prop is the guy at the front of a scrum, and the flankers are the two guys on the side of the scrum. And I've always seen that they've always got strange shaped heads, and it's because of how brutal they are. I mean, the number 8 normally is quite brutal, but they're quite big. They're massive, aren't they? They're huge.
Huge lumps, yeah.
Yeah, so they tend not to get their heads smashed to pieces so much, but the 6 and 7 aren't normally as big. So the two flankers either side are never normally as big, and they must just get their head just torn to pieces.
It's funny. It's funny you should say that, because as a flanker,
Yeah.
I realise I've got quite a few scars on the head from.
Yeah.
You see that?
And you even wear a scrum hat as well.
Yeah.
Which
But
is
that's like the remit of a flanker is just throwing yourself head first into all sorts of rucks and balls, which involve knees and studs and all sorts of wonderful stuff.
Yeah, I've seen you come off second in a couple of tackles where you got the guy down, but then you didn't get up. It was worth it for the cause, though. You slowed them down, which is what it's all about. Do you miss?
100%.
I mean, I'm missing rugby like crazy, and I had a bad injury in 2019, just before Christmas, which, to be honest, I blame on the game, but it was actually being drunk and playing one-on-one rugby at the gym on a Halloween party that we hosted there because we've got a big AstroTurf for anyone that is listening or watching. And I'm a scrum half, which means I'm a small guy, but I've flanked in the past as well, so I can play 6, which is a flanking position. So I can handle myself in and around contact. And
Absolutely.
being in shape at the time at about 85 kilos, I thought I'd go against Jake, who is one of the PTs there, who also plays rugby, at just shy of 110 kilos. Pretty much 3-point stance, 10-metre run up towards each other, and see who can bash the other one out of the way like a rhinoceros would.
Excellent.
Simple physics, I didn't win. And I've had a shoulder injury, meaning I can't really do any weights. I can't play rugby or do anything for about 5 months now. I'm 35 years old. This kid's 21. I had no hope.
Outrageous.
I missed the game.
What did you do? What was the damage?
Sprained the AC. In fact, to touch it still hurts. Yeah, sprained the AC joint and got quite a lot of movement in it, as I did. Second time that year, I'd done that injury against the same person doing the same thing drunk.
Logic.
Cheers. Logic, as you like to say. So
logic.
Cheers. This was my road to redemption. I
love it. A chance to prove yourself worthy, and then done exactly the same injury. Perfect. It's a perfect story.
Exactly. And now I'm going to talk to you about some of the things we've done over the past as well. So for some of you watching, but for many years we've been doing something called the Magaluf Beach Rugby. So for years we'd been there. We've been to Oktoberfest a couple of times. We've had some good cracks, and we've been on some decent tours. But I would say Maga has always been the kind of like the flagship tour for us. We did Budapest as well, which was fantastic for my 30th, and thank you very much for coming to that.
You're welcome. That was very good. Yeah, Maga. I think Maga it's probably the one we've done the most frequently, isn't it? There was a period of about 5 years where we did it every year.
Yeah.
And that was got ourselves into right states. But it was just the perfect kind of balance of the beach tournament, the 5-a-side rugby, but also we did like a long weekend around it. So the rugby itself, the tournament is 2 days, and then you've got 4 days of drinking, and our mentality was probably not so much geared towards the quality of rugby so much as enjoyment of the weekend. So, I don't think there was, every time we'd go with the best of intentions and someone would say, well, maybe we should take it a little bit easier on the first night because we've probably we've got the tournament the next day. As soon as someone says that, that's when that's the start of the tour, because that's when it's all going to go wrong, and we're going to get in all sorts of states before rugby the next day. And yeah, I don't think there was one occasion where we weren't still pissed for the tournament, which
well, it's nice that there was one occasion where we managed to turn up to the second day, which was good. But for those of you watching or listening, it's a 2-day event of which I think we've only made it to the second day twice out of the 5 times we've gone. And we pretty much only turned up to the second day because none of the other teams had turned up, and we knew we automatically won our pool. And it is a fantastic event if anyone can go. Now, there is something very, very prominent about our tours, and a kind of a criteria that has to be met, and it is to do with clothing. Now, I'm very proud to say that myself, Jack, and 2 others that aren't on the podcast are proud founders of something we call the FDC. Now, the FDC stands for the Fancy Dress Committee. Thank you. And I am the utmost senior member of the Fancy Dress Committee, which means that whenever we go away, you're not allowed to wear any normal clothing. Everything in your bag has to be fancy dress. There is a certain level of attire per day. For instance, travel attire has to be a shit shirt and short shorts.
Short shorts.
Information is key. There are other things as well that come into play. So, say if we go to Twickenham, True English Gent is normally the attire, and you have to have at least 2 trinkets or accessories that boost you up the food chain, and if the less impressive your accessories are, the more you have to forfeit. But this time in particular, with the Magaluf Beach Rugby, we came across an idea of having to buy for each other.
Oh yes, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not gonna. Well, the worst thing I've ever had to wear, I'm not even going to bring up because there's things that we don't talk about. But some of the things that we've worn have been pretty great. So the most impressive, I'd say, for us as a group would have been the red coats and Napoleon, which is historically wrong for a start. I'd say it's probably the most enjoyable thing we've all worn. And if we can get something in the show notes, I'd like to see if we can get some pictures. But Kingy, if you could go through any of the Rolodex of things that have happened on tour, is there anything that is predominantly stuck in your mind that you always go to whenever anyone brings anything up? Now, I don't want to put you too much on the spot here, so I'm going to try and waffle on while you have a quick think.
No,
I'll try and judge by your face.
I've got an immediate mental image. Oh, there's two. Which kind of sets the tone for the sort of silly stuff that goes on. One is the image of waking up in the morning, actually probably after the Redcoats evening, to look out to the balcony of the hotel room, see our lovely host Jerry standing there, butt naked, with the corner.
The bugle.
The bugle, sorry, yes. Playing the, was it the last post? Or were you?
The Reveille. There's a Reveille, yeah.
The Reveille. Oh, that's it, yeah. Just, so the hotel room was looking out across the beach and the
quite
view.
Quite idyllic, yeah.
And the image of, I think that was probably like day 3 as well into the tour. And so waking up with the worst of hangovers and just saying Jerry's pale arse on the balcony, just the sound of the bugle, arms outstretched. It was glorious. But that's the kind of thing that just perks you up instantly.
I played it terribly as well.
Yeah. I mean, it couldn't have been played any other way for that tour. The other thing is something that Rob Glanville reminded me of the other day is I was once, another time, dressed as a priest. I've been dressed as a priest a couple of times, my go-to outfit, because I'm a man of God, obviously.
Man of God.
And there was one time I was so wankered, and anyone who's been to those sort of holiday destinations will know you just get hounded constantly by the reps as you walk down the streets. And we're walking down at one point with our drinks, and I any rep that came towards us, I would just hold up my cross, dab some of my drink, and just go, "The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!" Which, for anyone who doesn't know, is this referencing a scene from The Exorcist, where the priest is trying to expel the demon from the young girl who's shoving crosses up God knows where and throwing up on people. So yeah, that was that's kind of.
I always have a go-to when it comes. Well, the one that I'm allowed to talk about.
There's a third one, if I can mention
as well.
which
you go.
Which is where we are dressed as wrestlers. That was the first time I came. I think you'd been a couple of times before, and I first joined. We were dressed as wrestlers. You were dressed as the warrior.
Ultimate Warrior.
I was an Ultimate Warrior. I was as Mankind with a sock and a ma. And we just wrestled in the street. It was a mass wrestle.
Royal Rumble on a bonnet of a car. I'd say that was one of the best fancy dress ideas we've ever had. But I also remember it was the last night, wasn't it? And when I get to a certain level where I've been drinking for that many days, I get really bad anxiety. And I kept getting really anxious. And it was you that nicknamed me the Ultimate Warrior for the whole night. And obviously, once we got out and started messing around and having fun, that subsided. But I really was the Ultimate Warrior. And you know what? In fact, there is that that bar that we all ended up in, which I think was an over 50s bar, and by which point we'd all swapped outfits and stuff. I think this is probably about this must have been about the third time you'd come about this time, and
yeah.
Harry Bryan, for instance, who I will go on a podcast at some point, was being carried by like a 50-year-old lady on her shoulder. Ellis is in the middle, another guy who is, for those of you that don't know, obviously, he's a number 8, so he's one of the guys who was saying is quite big. And what Ellis must be 6'5", is he? 6'4", 6'5", must be 18, 19 stone, and he's just pretty much wearing a pair of pants by this point. For some reason, he's managed to get some form of full facial mask which goes over his head. Like, imagine a Spider-Man mask but completely black, and has got a bride-to-be like sash that he'd stolen off of someone in there. So if I can get that video up, I will. I'd say one of my favourite memories of you when we've done a tour, which was Budapest. No, Oktoberfest, was the night after we had dressed up as Knights of the Templar, which, if you're in Germany, is a terrible idea. Yeah, that was a really bad idea. Didn't think that through at all, but we had a fantastic day. And you had dressed up as a dame, hadn't you? You dressed up as a
Maid Marian. Yeah.
We'd thrown each other down these hills. So if you've been to Oktoberfest, you know the Hill of Death. So the Hill of Death is where they kind of drag you out if you've comatose, drunk too much alcohol. They just chuck you on this massive hill, and they kind of just leave you for paramedics. So we found this hill must have been about midnight by this point. Everything's shut. And
it was the very last night of Oktoberfest, wasn't it? So that night is family day, and so it had shut quite early. But we obviously were not a family. Well, we're a family of sorts, I guess. But we'd found we'd actually not that day. We weren't actually in the beer tents. We'd gone to a nearby pub. It's completely empty. We'd basically taken it over.
It would be, wouldn't it? It would be though, wouldn't it?
100%. And by the end of the night, they were literally letting us pour our own pints because we'd put so much money behind the bar. They were just absolutely loving life. But yeah, sorry, continue.
I mean, we saved the business that day, partly because it was so busy and we were dressed so ridiculously. We didn't fancy being in and amongst all the families. So we went to this little bar, as Jack said. We pretty much said, look, this is the amount we would have spent. There was 10 of us. You know, it's roughly about €10 a litre of beer. Everyone's got, you do 100 quid a day, didn't you? So there was €1,000 there in this tiny little bar, and we said, look, we're happy to spend this here. Because he was about to shut the bar, wasn't he?
Exactly that.
Forward, yeah. You and me are having chair races through the middle of the bar. Anyway, so we go to the end of the night, and then this little German guy comes up and tries to push me down this hill. And I sat and think, okay, well, I'm not going to let that happen. So I just kind of threw this guy down a hill because he tried to push me down the hill. So I thought, this is obviously a funny thing everyone does. So I remember grabbing him and throwing him down the hill. And then someone else came up and just tried to do it to Gilly, who is huge. And Gilly, he got the same treatment. And I remember Gilly throwing him down the hill and then looked at me and went, that looks quite fun. And then he just threw himself down the hill. And then we spent the whole night rolling down this hill, just going up and running up and going down it. I mean, I was 32 years old at this point, 31, 32 years old.
It was about 10 grown men spending about 2 or 3 hours throwing themselves down a hill, running back up, running back up with the greatest of effort because it was so steep you could barely get up it. Like there were people stopping to watch us as they walked past. They're like, what the fuck are these guys doing?
But then every now and then there'd be a German guy just come tearing down the hill where one of his mates had thrown him down the hill. So this is the thing they do. You know what? I may as well go through the whole night. Because people won't believe what happened that night. So Glanville, so a guy called Rob, and I hope to get him on one of the episodes fairly soon. Very, very got a fantastic sense of humour, but does the weirdest stuff. He managed to find it was in his pocket. He rolled down the hill, and he stood up, and where he'd rolled down the hill, he managed to pick up a dead animal. So where he'd rolled down, and the hill was huge. Where he'd rolled down this hill, picked up some at speed, a dead robin had managed to find its way into his bum bag, because his bum bag zip was open. He kind of scooped it up, which he kind of looked at, thought that was strange, because he was so drunk and put it back.
He's put it back in the zipper and zipped it up.
And zipped it up and kept it, and then carried on rolling down the hill. So fast forward, I think we're now in a McDonald's. It must be 2 a.m. We're freezing cold, soaking wet.
We're covered in mud as well.
Oh, caked in mud. And Glanville is now trying to get himself a bag of chips. I'm trying to get everyone home. And he's got to go and get his money out at the front of McDonald's. And instead of his money, he's just grabbed this dead robin and presented it to the person in McDonald's, who has screamed. The whole queue, like you can imagine, because it is standing room only in this McDonald's, okay? Because it is so packed. And suddenly, as if you've just decided to pull a pin on grenade, everyone's just swooned out to the side, like that, whilst he's standing there, dressed as a knights as a round table, dressed as a Knights Templar, which is frowned upon anyway, holding a dead animal in the middle of McDonald's. Needless to say, we're all kicked out. I think he did get some chips. To which point I've had enough. I'm not even getting to the part where I'm talking about you yet, but we've now got freezing cold. No one's going to let us in anywhere to eat anything because we're covered in mud. Stupid. Just feel like shit. And I remember seeing a bus, and I remember thinking, right, it can't be any worse. I'm just going to get on this bus. So I've walked over to this bus. Everyone is saying, where's this bus going? Is this our bus? And I've just said, yeah, this is our bus. It's not. I don't care where it's going. I just want to get warm. Okay? So I remember getting on this bus, everyone piling on this bus. So full 9 blokes, fully trusting me because I'm the leader.
Yeah.
I got on and effectively just fell asleep.
Yeah.
Well, needless to say, we've ended up in central Munich's bus station. And we've all got off. And then the bus obviously goes off to where buses go to die. But there's 9 of us. Do you remember that? 10 got on and 9 of us got off. What we hadn't realised is one guy that had never been on a tour with us, was a little bit sketchy, was invited by a friend. He came along with us, and I knew him anyway. He'd actually got in the baggage compartment of the bus and fallen asleep. And he ended up. So we were in we're in central. That bus station was in central Munich. We were staying in southern Munich, and he ended up going to like north and west. That's where the bus depot, that's where the bus station is, where they go to clean the buses and all that. And apparently, well, he woke up there, and he had to throw his shoe at a car and just get in it, and that's how he got home. So anyway, we've managed to finally get back. I remember having to flag down taxis. We had to hitchhike a bit, I think, at some point. We had to do all sorts of stuff to get back to the horrible campsite.
We walked for a good sort of 4 miles at early hours.
I think, did we have to use we had to use a compass of some description, didn't we? We had to just use what we thought was in the right direction, or because nothing made any sense. Trev was the guy that got us there. Yeah. Anyway, we got home, and the next morning was horrible because we were staying in that one big tent, weren't we?
Remember? Let's clarify. It was a teepee, and even that's a very complimentary description of it. It was basically a plastic sheet over which I guess is a teepee, but a plastic sheet over a pole, and it had pelted. It was torrential rain during that weekend, so the teepee was
floating.
It was just there was so little space in that thing. It was amazing. But yeah, sorry, that was the teepee. Yeah,
that's horrendous. Well, bearing in mind it housed four people. I think I bring the average down, but the majority of you guys are fairly big. And I remember waking up. I mean, for instance, Gilson was throwing up into a plastic bag, which was horrendous. But there was this smell. I remember this smell. I thought, what is that smell? And it was like eye-wateringly disgusting. And I remember you getting up and looking around. Everyone's looking around. What is that? And there's something, checking shoes, checking everything. And it was as you turned and you turned over to look on the back of your t-shirt, you had ironed out a dog turd where you'd rolled down this hill, which was pressed against the back of your top. And I've got a fantastic picture of you holding up. And I assume you threw that t-shirt away. One of your favourite t-shirts.
No, I still have it unwashed.
And there's so many bad memories from that, but that must be the Gilson vomiting into a bag whilst you're holding up a t-shirt with an ironed out, perfectly flat dog turd pressed to the back of it.
That was that pretty much summarised the evening that we'd sort of transgressed into, didn't it? That was a special day, that though, because I remember where we'd started in that sort of really quiet pub. We were all so hungover because that was day 3 of our 3 days in Oktoberfest.
And I mean, it's no holds barred in it. It's full tilt, boozing, just constant.
Yeah. And so we'd obviously 2 parts. We were all absolutely knackered, hungover. But also, we'd gone to the tent for the 3rd day in a row, and we're all in that fancy dress, like you say, because it was a family day, and the last day of the weekend. Absolutely not the right time to be wearing fancy dress. All the families were like looking at us with disgust. We quickly realised it was a bad idea, so we obviously were leaving the actual event. So we're demotivated anyway. We pretty much abandoned the event. We're like, this day is done. And then we get into this quiet, shitty bar. And we're all sitting around this table. No one's saying a word. We're all sitting there in silence, pretty much. There's 10 blokes. No one's speaking. And then one of us, I can't remember who, it was just like, right, drinking games. And that was it. We just started a drinking game. And
Matchbox
game.
I also remember being in utter agony for the whole trip because only a few days prior, I'd had a tooth. I'd had a crown, a cracked during a rugby game once. I cracked a tooth, and I had a crown for a few years, and it just played up, kept getting abscess. It was awful. So I just remember going to the dentist and saying, "Look, what can I do?" And he said, "Look, to be honest, it's never going to get better, mate. So we can pull it out." And I went, "Look, I'm going Oktoberfest in like 5 days, no, 3 days time." And he said, "No, it'll be fine." I mean, I don't know what I did to this guy, because everyone I've ever spoken to, and we play rugby with dentists and stuff, and they've just said, "What? What planet is this guy on? You're going to Oktoberfest with a hole in your head, and it's a back tooth. I've still got the hole because while I play rugby, I'll never get.
Was it wisdom?
No. It's yeah.
Oh yeah, got it. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So what's that? Must be. So it's third from back.
Yeah.
He said, "Nah, couple of days, be fine." I stick. He didn't even. Maybe a stitch, maybe one stitch, which that lasted about half an hour. And I remember having to carry a little pot of Listerine with me.
That's what I remember. The swigging every fucking 10 minutes of that.
Because the sheer agony, until I was pissed. And there was me taking painkillers with the steins of beer so bad. You know, like I am now, even though I have the occasional cigar, I love a beer, you know, and I am so open about the way I live because, you know, people are human, and that's why I do this. I work like that so I can live like this. I have 2 cigars a week tops, and I drink probably once a week. At the moment, a lot more than that. But at that point, I just remember thinking, this guy stitched me up so bad. It was like being electrocuted, like chewing on barbed wire that was electrified. Every time I ate, I remember having to eat like that, and then like a seagull, kind of swallow my food. Oh, it's so bad. And I just, why? Because he said, "Oh, you know, look, we can do this when you're back, but we may as well do it now. You'll be fine in 2 days' time." Absolute fucking lie.
He fucked you broadly up. Yeah.
Oh.
He took a particular liking to you.
That was private. That's not NHS. That's private. I paid for that.
Oh Jesus!
Really happy with that.
Well, that's probably why he's telling you whatever you want to hear. It's like, you're paying. Of course, it'll be fine.
Pay more and it'll get better quicker.
Yeah.
In fact, before that, I remember actually when I was, and they were the worst shower stroke toilet cubicles ever. And you know, I've got a lot of friends that are Australian. And you know, I love you guys, but when you guys all get together in a foreign country, you guys could be absolute fucking assholes. I think it must have been about 60 Aussies up in the corner.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And they were just constant. It was just constant. But the other thing as well, unless you're Australian, you're not allowed in. So I remember going up and go, "How you doing, guys?" "Fuck off, mate." "Oh, all right." And, you know, it was probably just that group, which is fair enough, that group of 60 people. But they were pretty certain that they didn't want to mix with anyone other than other Australians. And the only time I got any kind of positivity out of them was when I went sprinting to the world's worst toilet. So if you've ever seen Trainspotting, you know, they made that toilet in Trainspotting look like the Ritz. Yeah. I went sprinting to the toilet to throw up, and I got a standing ovation and a round of applause whilst I was chundering next to a bloke taking a dump in the next cubicle. So yeah, it wasn't. Never again.
Which might as well have been the shower cubicle, because it was that kind. Like, it was so awful. God.
Yeah, I think we'll probably do things. You know, times were different. You know, we've come a little bit of a way, and we did things on a budget then. Oh yeah, and I remember having bruises on my chest as well from where the dentist had his knees on my chest, ripping out my teeth as well. So I couldn't even go to sleep properly without being suitably suitably drugged up. Yeah, I mean, so at the moment, what's kind of motivating you, and what would you say that is like your go-to at the moment for motivation and enjoyment right now? Because obviously you can't go and do what you normally do, socialising and stuff like that. What's your thing? What are you doing in the household?
I think my go-to at the minute is, so when obviously the world is a bit more normal of before, and you're in a routine, it's easier to kind of just go through those motions.
Yeah.
And those habits just continue because you're already in them. So what I've been making more of a point to doing in the last kind of month, which has been helping, is writing a lot more lists than I used to. Or even if I did write a list before, I wouldn't really pay much attention to it because it would be a nice exercise. But, reality is those best laid plans always get brushed aside in any given day when other things come in that you don't predict. So, but now that, you can kind of predict your day with much greater degree of accuracy, and that there's no other distractions kind of coming in that's going to fuck shit up. So I've been making lists and actually sticking to them, and I'm finding that's helping me to be more productive in those things that I want to focus on.
Yeah.
So I guess practically speaking, that's really helping. But yeah, other than that, it's just doing the things that I'm interested in, like we've mentioned already, being a bit more creative, like doing the podcast. So, I've been talking to various people for the last 2.5 years, really, about wanting to do a podcast. And it's only really in the last month that I've actually decided. Well, actually, ironically, it was about a week before the lockdown kicked in. On one of my days off, I just thought, you know what? Just don't overthink it. Just start recording something and do it.
Taking perfect action. I'm a big advocate of that.
Yeah, exactly that. And actually, that's kind of helped the style of the podcast because, shout out to my podcast. It's called the After Work Forum. It's basically complete nonsense. It has no format. It's and I quite like that. That's how it started, and it's basically just a mixture of musings and commentary. Try to have a guest on every episode to just chat, much like we're doing for 20 minutes or so, and then also a mixture of throwing some creative stuff where I like to write music and stuff. So I make some songs about some random topics, etc. So. Yeah,
do you play anything on the podcast?
Yeah, in the first episode, because I literally, like I say, when I say I just literally press record, that is exactly what I do. I had no plan for what to say or do. So part of that first episode is me recording, kind of thinking about what makes up a good podcast or what a podcast should have. So I basically was just playing around with a few song ideas for a theme tune for the podcast. So I'm playing that on the episode, and then a few other bits and bobs, whatever.
And then have you got your guitar near you?
I do.
Could you give us a little spin of what your podcast intro sounds like?
I can do. Yeah, it'll give you a good idea of the really bad quality of the podcast. But let me go for it.
It's an exclusive, guys. We've got a real life musician playing for us right now. How's that? What we got? Cool. Oh. Mr. Banderas himself.
Hello.
Give us a spin.
After work, 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 forum, after work, work forum, after work, work forum, after work. something like that.
That's brilliant. Well, you know, I'm a fangirl. I've always been a fangirl. A lot of songs there, mate. That's pretty. So you just bash that out and it's stuck.
Yeah, well, basically, so in the first episode, I recorded 5 random shit ideas, that one included, and then put it to the listeners, said, vote for your favourite, and that will be the theme tune. So that was clip 2, the one I just played, which I'm now trying to turn into a proper recording for the theme tune at the start of the episode. So,
I love that, man.
Yeah.
No, bravo. And I mean, interestingly as well, are you doing it in a similar format? Are you using Zoom, or is there anything else that you could recommend for other people?
So I'm only doing audio at the minute. So I basically am using, I'm actually recording the episodes on GarageBand on my MacBook, and then I'm posting it through Anchor FM.
Yeah.
So Anchor FM's are really good. If anyone is keen to do podcasting, Anchor FM is a great.
That's what I'm using.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a great free app that basically it posts it through their platform, but also then to a lot of the other major outlets like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc.
I looked at a few places to host my podcast before I'd even taken it seriously, and I couldn't find anywhere that did what Anchor did. Everything was like there were a certain amount of uploads you could do, upload length, and then it was only because I watched your last one, and then I saw Anchor FM, and I thought, I'll check that out because you're using it. That I found it. I mean, it probably is really well advertised, but I hadn't found it before.
No, and I guess, in fairness, I guess it's something you're not going to be keeping an eye out for until you decide you want to record your own podcast, because it is very much, it's advertising geared towards people wanting to do their own. But yeah, I think it's genius. It's completely free. There's a good bit of kind of customization to it. It's simple enough to use. If you wanted to, like I say, because I do a lot of like the heavy editing on my episodes with like the music and other stuff, like cutting in bits and bobs. So I like to use GarageBand to record it, but you could quite easily, if you wanted it simple enough that you just wanted to record a quick episode on your phone, the app allows you to just press record. You can record something, you can add other sound bites, and then make an episode then and there, sitting with your phone on the sofa, if you were that way inclined.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very new to what I'm doing, so my plan at the moment, as you know, my goal is my mission, as I like to say, is to interview 100 different people about their timing in lockdown right now, just to let people in the future know what it was like. So mine's pretty raw. This will be part of the Zoom thing. You'll get the MP4 and the MP3. The MP3 goes straight into Anchor. The MP4 goes straight to YouTube. No editing, no messing around. So all the fucking buggers are in there. All of the stupid stuff, all the stuff that doesn't make sense is in there. And I quite like that. But I think, moving forward, I would need to take more of a professional standpoint on it, which I get. But I love the way how easy it is, and for people watching, I also would recommend it because you can save sound bites on it and then drag those in. You can chop and change bits. It is a bit clunky in places, but I think that's probably where I'm fairly new to it, and I've got a relatively shit laptop, so that doesn't help. It's purple.
Yeah. But I also think that's the beauty of podcasts. It can be, sometimes it works to just be a bit more grassroots and just a natural conversation. If that's the style you want to go for. Some podcasts are heavily edited. Others are literally just, like your Joe Rogans, your 3 hours of unedited conversations.
Absolute joy. Pure joy, that is, yeah.
Yeah, but obviously, easier for him to have a 3 hour engaging conversation when he's got experts in, neuroscience on his podcast and all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. But but yeah, you know, that's what I love about podcasts. They're infinitely kind of bespoke to whatever interests are out there. So yeah, I quite like what you're doing, mate. It's good. If I tell you what, if you want at least a theme tune, I'll make you one.
I'd love a theme tune. I've got quite a militant beginning to what we do use in the podcast at the moment, which is something I knocked up, which I quite like. But moving forward, I've got my a new podcast which I will be starting after, which I will need a theme tune for. I'm not going to go too much into it, but it's a book I wanted to write, and it's about motivation and getting yourself out of a rut. And it's stuff I do all the time, but it's more importantly speaking to people like yourself that find inspiration as opposed to find problems in the world, you know. So they find solutions as opposed to, you'll always find there are people that either find a solution to a problem or always find a problem for the solution. And I want to veer as many people the other way as possible towards the solution-based outcome. And the podcast is simply stop being shit.
Yeah.
Just gets people out their own way, starts believing in themselves. And I think this time is where people will have that opportunity to reflect. And as the doors reopen, I think that will give way to my follow-up series, which will be the Stop Being Shit podcast, because now the reset button's been pressed. I mean, we are currently living through history right now, and more importantly, we are experiencing yet another an era, you know, an age. So through our lives, I mean, I'm a bit older than you, Jack, but not by much. We have already experienced between 3 and 4 ages, and it's scary to think. Bearing in mind, ages are normally broken up into like the Iron Age, the Bronze Age, you know, the Ice Age, which have varied from hundreds of thousands of years to thousands of years to hundreds of years. And then suddenly, when technology came into play, you think of the Industrial Age. We've then moved from that into the tech age and the bubble of that bursting. And now we're moving into yet another age where I don't know what it's called, but it's an online age. You know, this is what we're coming through now.
Probably,
the ages, they're getting smaller. This has been like 5 years since the beginning of an age, and now that's changed again, which is insane. Like the reset button has been pressed, and the opportunity there is huge. So that is where I want people to get out of their shell. So what take homes would you say, you know, as I'm clearly getting to the end of my cigar and my beers are running out, so we may as well start meandering towards a close. What take homes have you taken so far from the lockdown?
I think the best take home for me is actually what I've enjoyed, or what I'm getting the most out of it, is actually very much seeing the glass as half full and seeing the value in having this extra time. And so seeing its value and its potential is basically making me, without what feels like not any great deal of extra effort, just actually using that time productively. Like I say, whether it's through making a few more lists and actually following up through with stuff, whether it's putting more time because I have more time into the creative stuff that I'm already interested in. You know, I consider myself fortunate because I do know there is stuff I'm interested in doing, where previously, before, I didn't have as much time to do that stuff. Now I do. You know I can put that time into it, and it's something I'm going to enjoy. So I think for me, it's been the most valuable thing. The best thing about this has just been actually acknowledging those things that I'm interested in and I know I'm passionate about, and just going in more on that stuff. You know, It's kind of buckling down. So I think if there, you know, I know plenty of people, myself, who I don't necessarily have as many things they're actually interested in, or know what, you know, whether it's a hobby, you know, don't have many hobbies, or, you know, other stuff they like doing. And so I guess this is a good opportunity to try and figure that out as well. You know, again, without as many distractions, you know, just explore stuff, find a topic you're interested in, just see where it goes.
I absolutely love that, man. It is a creator's dream right now. And the crazy thing is, humans are creative in any shape or form, we all have an element of creativity within us. Everybody does. I think the people that are struggling right now haven't found what they want to find, and you know that's cool. You don't have to find that, but there is something that everyone enjoys doing that they do have access to right now. And I think that everyone needs to kind of be a lot calmer and a lot more forgiving to themselves and realize that, yeah, okay, if you have a whole day or even 3 days where you don't kind of get out of your pajamas because you don't want to, and you just sing or you watch something or you inspire yourself in some way, that's fine. But if you are down and you are really struggling right now, I think find the stuff that picks you up, speak to the people that you love, and try and be creative. You know, we're never getting this again. We're never getting this again. You're never going to get an opportunity to get paid 80% of your income and sit on your sofa all day. And no one is getting that. But there is so much opportunity.
Yeah, you're right. And just on the creative point, like, creative doesn't mean in the stereotypical sense of like drawing something or writing music or whatever you think of stereotypical creativity being. Creative could be, you can be creative with your cooking, with with coming up with a new plan for something, or with
anything.
Anything, a new business idea, whatever it is. Like, creativity is anything. It's just coming up with a new idea of what you want to do and following through with it, isn't it?
I like the other thing with that as well is the amount of positive reinforcement that's out there right now. Everyone has the time to listen and listen with no expectation of having time wasted. So people can listen to something, and if it doesn't really come to anything, they're not cruel, they're not nasty. They don't say you wasted my time. If anything, you occupied their time, and it didn't quite have what they wanted out of it. But they're that people are being a lot kinder, and I like that. When we're all so focused that time is money, which is a scary way to live, and that's how we have been living. We have this idea that if I'm going to invest my time in a podcast, if I'm going to invest my time in a YouTube video, or if I'm going to talk to you, or if I'm going to be your friend, I need to get value out of every minute of my day because I'm at work normally. And now we can spend a week on Disney Plus and no one bats an eyelid.
Yeah.
So people are being kinder. People are watching B-rate movies. People are listening to stuff they've never listened to. People are taking time to do things they've never done. Is there anything that you want to learn or you want to explore that you haven't already? Because you've explored quite a lot in the past, and like your music and stuff. Is there anything that you want to do alongside or learn?
Well, I guess yes and no. I mean, yes, definitely. I think I'm also kind of conscious that whilst we have more time now, it's also easy to overcommit to stuff. So if I make sort of too many plans to do too many things at the same time, you kind of lose that quality of putting the time into the stuff you really want to be doing. But for me, if there was other stuff I could be doing, so I want to learn how to do animation, which kind of aligns with stuff I've been doing. I've done a bit of video editing before, but I want to learn how to make animation. Yeah. So I'd love the idea of making my own little like cartoon series. Nothing major, but just like a little YouTube series, animated. That's something I've wanted to do for a while. So I think putting some time into doing that, learning that process, and if I had any extra time, which I don't think I'm going to get to do, I would love to pick up a language again. But again, I think that's very much a bottom of the wish list at this point. Probably French. But there's other things that I'm just kind of picking up just by proxy of like having more structure to the day. So without needing to commute in the mornings, for example, Chantel and I, we're doing yoga every morning. We're doing 20 minutes of yoga. In addition to any other exercise we do throughout the day, but just 20 minutes within like the first hour of us being up, we just get we get our 2 mats out, and we just do 20 minutes of yoga. And that's not something either of us really did regularly before, but we're just learning that and we're getting into that now because again, particularly as we're kind of sitting here quite immobile for much of the day, it's good to kind of have that stretch out, and it's a good way to start the day as well.
Oh,
So
yeah, I'm so bad at yoga, so bad. Years of weight training. So since the age of 14, I'm 35 now. I've done weight training, so I've done the opposite of yoga since I was 14 years old, and I literally creak and crunch like an old barn door as I'm trying, and yeah, I blow off and everything's wrong when I do yoga, and so I could never do it publicly. And I do give it a go because we host a couple of yoga sessions on our channel, and I'm so bad. I'm so bad, but I do enjoy it.
it's I think the good thing is about it as well. Like, so we're using an app called Down Dog, which is just and they've kind of it's one of those classic apps where they've got a certain amount of it's free normally, and then there's a premium version as well. But then because of the lockdown, they've made all of their content free for the month of April. So we've been using that, and you can set the amount of time, and the duration, sorry, and the whether you want it beginner, intermediate, expert. So it's loads of customization. So yeah, it's just really easy. But yeah, I guess like anything, I think it's just if you've got the right mindset, you can. I'm not particularly good at yoga either, but if you just take it at your own pace, you can get something out of it, whether it's literally just creaking over it, half an inch, stretching as much as you can, or putting your heads between your legs and tickling your balls, whatever it is, whatever floats your boat.
Your moustache would do that, man. It's putting my little thing to shame.
I'm liking.
Well, I can tell you now, it is extremely unpopular with my wife. She absolutely hates it. I don't know how much longer I can realistically keep it for. Quite literally, it is obviously growing on me. I did it as a bit of a prank, but I then looked in the mirror and thought, oh, I quite like this.
Absolutely. I frequented a moustache for some time before. I'm growing my beard out at the minute because I'm going for the reverse head. So nice. Keeping the hair short, growing the beard long. Again, just why not the opportunity to do so. So
you tick all the boxes, live in London, graphic designer, have a beard, ride a penny farthing to work, only drink brew dog, stuff like that,
Exactly that.
So just one last thing, as we wind down, as we are going to be closing this up fairly soon, what piece of advice would you give people that are so if you were to give yourself advice right now, knowing what you know now, and talking to yourself when this all started, what kind of advice would you give yourself?
So I think best practical advice I would give someone that I've been trying to follow, which I think has really helped me, is to keep that structure to your day. Because it is always a slip. I mean, it's an obvious one, obviously, but it's a slippery slope if you don't. And I've done it before, not during the lockdown, but in previous times where you have that time out and you look back and you probably think, well, I didn't really make best use of that, or I got into a bit of a rut, and it's largely because you didn't try and keep that bit of structure, that bit of continuity to your day and your thinking. So I think, especially at a time like this where it's so easy, basically the government is encouraging us to sit at home and do fuck all. It's all the more important that you kind of fight that and try and keep that element of structure. So I think that's probably the most useful, basic, practical advice I would give myself at the beginning of this, that I found is working for me. But then also, find a balance with that as well. I think there's probably one thing we haven't talked about, which I know is a con of flexible working and remote working, which, before the pandemic it's very easy to kind of do a lot long, in some ways to do more hours than you would if you were in an office. You're sitting there at your desk and you decide to get ahead of the game, you might log on at 7 a.m. suddenly it's 9 p.m. You haven't really spent any time away from your desk. You're still working, So I think the other thing is to keep that balance as well, and to make sure, that it is okay to spend an afternoon doing fuck all, but just don't do that every afternoon. So, and taking that time out, but that's also part of the structure, isn't it? Part of a structured day is equally planning time for relaxation as it is for planning time for doing the other stuff. So yeah,
I love that. I mean, to be fair, with that in mind, probably it's time to wind this down. I had promised the missus that I would probably have a little cheeky hot tub this evening, and I've got a horrible feeling that I've now squandered that opportunity. So, guys, first of all, Jack, thank you so much for tonight, mate. We'll
pleasure.
Hopefully I'll get to do this on your show. Hint, hint. But some of the take-homes from that have been really big. I think the structure, first of all, the structure, and realising that you do need to keep some form of structure because you can overwork, and I'm so guilty for this. And I think I need to listen to that a little bit deeper because I love to work and I make myself as busy as possible. And I also, I love the idea of having that creativity, find a way to release your mind and give stuff a go. Don't be afraid of the backlash. Don't be afraid. If it's crap, it doesn't matter. Do it anyway. Take imperfect action. Let everyone tell you it's crap, because at the moment they will tell you how to make it better. And that's fine. That's cool. And you'll build, you'll develop thicker skin from that. And I've absolutely loved doing that in the past. And I think if everyone could do that, the world would be a bit kinder to everybody, because there'd be a load more crap shit out there. But more importantly, we'll be celebrating people's creativity as opposed to having to constantly be at work. So, Jack, thank you so much for that. Guys, I'm going to wind this down. Stay on for me, please, Kingy, because I'm going to stop the recording for this lot. But if this video or podcast, depending on what platform you're watching or listening on, has resonated with your beliefs or has kind of triggered you into doing something positively, please do share this podcast. Please do tell people about it. And if you'd like to get in contact with Jack about his after work podcast, please do look in the show notes, because we will have links to that as well as how to get in contact if you would like to be on his show. As well, guys, if you do want to be on this show, if you want to help me with my mission to interview 100 people, I'm only up to about 16 or 17, can't quite remember, in the first few days of this lockdown. I want to document this, A, for historical value, but B, if I can come up with 100 ideas, because if everybody can give me one, that means I'll come up with 100 things to do during lockdown. And if it was ever to happen again, we've got you covered. So please do get in contact either by our Facebook page or just comment in the notes section on YouTube or on the podcast. So thanks a lot for getting in touch, guys. And that's pretty much us for the rest of the night. So thanks again, Kingy. And we'll see you soon.